Well, hello, hello. Here we are. Swagglehaus, Carl, Sarah, otherwise known as Nerdy Barbie, 24/7 team, having a special late night Monday stream here to talk about some comic book reading. I don't know about just a little bit of a preface for you guys. This is my second night in a row that I've done a stream, which I think is a record for my YouTube channel. I usually am like one stream a week and then I'm totally pooped out. But I'm excited to be on with you guys here today. If you guys don't know, if you're watching on my stream or maybe you're watching on the 24/7 stream, this is a co-stream at the same time. We got it going on both channels. It's good to have you guys here to talk some comic book reading. I guess I'll give it off to you guys in case people don't know Carl or Sarah. Maybe you guys can just say hello to my side of the chat and maybe introduce yourselves.
Ladies first.
Hi, everyone. I'm the sidekick here. I come from a world of cosplay and just being a big old fan of everything and becoming obsessed with every detail from the outside in. So I'm really kind of representing the beginners here and people who want to know more and just here to spread love and inclusivity.
I love that. I'm Carl Troy. I'm the publisher for 24/7 Comics. Great to see you guys, the Swagglehaus channel. We're hoping to do more of these. At 24/7 Comics, we are really building into the space, and we feel like there's new ways to do publishing, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. I think for the value that the comic community creates, I think we could be capturing more of the value there in return. So what we want to do is invite the community to come along, hear about, what you guys are feeling and what things could change within the space, which is one of the big topics today, where I think, Mickey and I was talking and we were just kind of having coffee and I was like, does people even read comics anymore? Because often, we're listening to comics on YouTube as folks read it for us. And even in talking to Sarah about this is there a more interesting way we could be reading comics for people or reading with people, right? And so those are some of the topics that we want to cover today. And perhaps we could find some solutions together as to how to nurture our community for this next phase.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to have you guys on. We'll have a conversation. Shout out to everyone in the chat hanging out. I get a lot of I'll call it flack on my YouTube channel because my specific channel, at least the way that I think of it, is I spend a lot of time talking about vintage collecting and high-end sales and what happens on the secondary market. And everyone always accuses me of never talking about comic book reading. Well, to all those people, this show is for you now. We're going to talk about comic book reading. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that we ourselves are, consuming and enjoying and stuff. But I also do want to talk a little bit about like bigger, industry things. Maybe later on we'll talk about like Comics Pro. If you guys don't know, Carl was at Comics Pro. Comics Pro is the big Illuminati meeting where all the big wigs in the comic industry get together and talk, publishing stuff and things that they got going on in the calendar. And Carl was there, and I'd love to get his thoughts on it. And we'll get into some of these topics that I think some of you guys might be interested to hear about. So. I guess let's kick it off. I mean, again, like Carl was saying, we were at coffee the other day and we just started, talking about comic book reading and like where we're at with stuff and what we're, currently reading and are people interested in this stuff. Let me just start there and let me bring in Sarah here. Like Sarah, what's just your vibe right now with comics? Are you into them right now? Are you kind of like, I'd rather go watch Dune? Are you like, reading anything? Is anything got you interested? What's your just thoughts on it right now?
I'm super into it. I think that the last time I thought about it, I realized that a lot of beginners were kind of losing touch because it's almost like when you're at a convention, you're like, ooh, this is shiny and I want it. But it was almost becoming like a novelty for people I was going to conventions with. Yeah. So definitely in a place of like reeling it back in and wanting to find avenues of samples of things to get into. But I recently have been going through Disneyland withdrawals. So I'm currently rereading the Star Wars Edge comics.
Nice.
What I love about these is you can just physically go to the park and like actually relive it yourself. So that's just holding me over for the time being. I'm very much the person that takes a good recommendation and becomes fully obsessed with it. So I'm taking a break from all my Batman comics and kind of just going into something that's just fun and like very carefree, with the full intent of going fully into something new. And I think that's kind of why I'm just kind of waiting for our stream to get going, because I want it to be something that's suggested to me from everyone out there.
Right. What about you, Carl? What's your kind of thing right now? Are you thumbing around through anything in particular, or would you call this like a low in your reading interest days?
It's been a little on the low side. I can't say I don't love it, but Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers has been a great read. I've never been like a huge fan of Transformers, but I love Daniel Warren Johnson. I think last year, if you were to ask me what I was reading, Do a Powerbomb was the one I literally buy for everybody. I can probably say I bought at least 100 copies of the trade, giving it away to all my friends. I think Sarah, you have one too. So everyone has one. And so I just felt like it's one of those things where when I get so inspired by a comic, I want to give it to everyone to read it. Otherwise, I do try to read and catch up what's the latest on the Batmans, stuff I hear about. But it feels a little fragmented. For example, I think there's movies that come out and they'll have a certain storyline that drops, and they're like totally unrelated. And I think that's been an issue for me, where I just felt like, actually, even looking at Sarah, I didn't even know about that Disneyland comic, like, and how
I read all the books too. I'm the only person where I'm like, I already know what I'm stealing your credits from behind you, because I already know what they're for. I knew the code to get into that Star Wars bar before we even.
That's hilarious. I didn't know what that was. So where did that comic
come from? Carl, finally I can help you.
You got me. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'll just answer the question for myself. Like, I find myself reading a lot of older stuff, and I don't know if I'm alone in that. And I think that's interesting, because I think of it as like, oh, is that a problem, like, for publishers? Because I'm almost like not going to invest myself in a new thing until I know that it's sort of like been established as, oh, everyone is reading it, everyone's talking about it. So like, even for me, like, I just put it next to me so you guys know. So I'm finally reading like The Last Ronin. Great book. One. Like I read the first couple issues when they first came out. Yeah. I bought the one, and then I was like, oh, this is really good. And then as the other ones were coming out, I was like, well, I kind of want to wait until like they're all finished, and then I can just buy like the hardback. And that's what I did. And so now I'm reading this comic book that is 2 years old, and so I'm not buying, Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers, or I'm not like reading the latest Star Wars. And I feel like I'm not alone in that behavior. Whereas like in movies, like I'm going to go watch Dune, because that's like the hot new thing. But like, it would be like me being like, oh, I don't want to watch Dune. I'm just going to watch like, I don't know, old Indiana Jones movies instead.
No, that's amazing.
But I feel like, so I don't know if I'm alone in that thing. Maybe that's just my personal thing, but I kind of feel like a lot of people just sort of buy the trades, which makes like new comics hard to sell, and for people
not that way. I mean, apparently within the publisher space, 80% of any title's revenue is driven from the trade paperback sales. So what you actually find is often they put these books out to get the buzz and the grassroots support through the comic book shops, but it's through the trades that revenue is generated. And that's why when you see a comic not hit that 6th issue mark and doesn't become a trade, it's really hard for a creator to actually make money from, or even a publisher. But I'm on the same boat as you, Mickey. I actually went to Comics Pro, and I did not come back reading any of the new comics. I was most excited about Valiant being distributed through Alien Books, and then like reissue classics. And I picked up the Archer and Armstrong, Barry Windsor Smith run, and I've been reading that every night, just catching up on Barry Windsor. But kind of parlaying this into part of the topic is also how I've been reading it. I've actually been reading that very slowly. That trade I've been reading a little bit every night, and I'll fall asleep. But then because I had this Barry Windsor Smith itch, I started reading Weapon X on the plane. And so I downloaded it on my iPad, and I basically have the whole Weapon X trade, and I blasted right through it on one flight. And it was like one of the best reads I've had in such a long time. And classics like that kind of just remind me of why I fell in love with comics in the first place.
Do you think, because Sarah, you were saying this too, where you were like, oh, I'm reading like Star Wars now, but then like I came off my Batman thing, and then like to your point, Carl, you like jumped to Weapon X. Like, do you think like ADD comic reading is just like how it just is like, this is what you're supposed to do? Like this idea of like, you know, the joke is you go into the comic book store and they're like, where do I start? And they're like, I don't know, just anything. And then there's no like chronological order in which you're supposed to go. Is that just like how people are supposed to read?
There's so many different types of learners. Just being a Star Wars person, they're like, do we go episode 1, 2, 3, or do we start with 4, 5, 6? And it's for people like us to be like, well, I know you, and I think you'd enjoy it best this way.
Right.
I mean, I think I would probably default to your judgment, just like I do Carl. Carl knows what I want. He knows what I like, so I trust his judgment. But that could be different for each and everything.
Do you end up like do you finish everything you start reading?
Oh, yes, I
do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, I definitely trust the judgment, and I can start towards the end, but I will definitely go back and read everything up to that point if I've enjoyed it. And I think that's all people want. People are like so used to just grabbing something as they're walking through a con, but it's like a display. It's like a display thing. Like they may not ever touch it, but I think just circling back and being like, oh, did you see that this happened afterwards? They're like, oh, shoot, you know what? Maybe I should pick that up. But I also was interested to know actually that you read that on your iPad. So for people who maybe don't know better, you have a Kindle version, then you have like a paper version, but you're actually seeing the same artistry, same illustration to a T. I don't think people know that. I think they have to settle if they're reading it on their iPad.
True.
So that might be something we should explore a little bit more. Like, how was that experience versus holding it in your hands?
Do you think, is it like a age thing? Like, do kids?
I want to smell the paper, you know?
Who doesn't want to smell paper? Smelling paper is the best.
I like paper.
Everyone knows that smelling paper is all about the experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even if it smells terrible, it's still
even menus. I work in restaurants still, and I'm like, is this good or like we're gonna pay back?
Paper is powerful. I think there's something about ordering on a paper menu versus ordering on your phone, right? Because you guys notice that where when you order a menu, you feel like there is this intimacy with the food that you're about to order. You visualize it more.
You're more present. You're more present with like the restaurant itself, you know?
Like, we may use a little like come up to your table and put it in on whatever, but like holding it in your hand and seeing it versus like I always pre-read a menu before I go in, but I still want to hold it and feel it. And that's how I'm going to order.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, you know, I really haven't gotten too far into reading comics on the go in that way. I still bring them with me.
Right.
I have a little like a cheat on comics. I feel bad, and at the same time I don't, because from what I heard on the corporate level, this has been told to not been addressed, and this is the whole
Wait, exclusive, everyone. Are you ready?
The pirating market is well known by the corporate, and they're told by the publisher. And this is a big 2 publisher that told me over lunch and says.
Let's quickly set this up, because this is a very interesting topic that I think we should discuss, and maybe people in the chat too have thoughts on this. Like, so we're talking about the format. You know, we all love reading, you know, comics physically. I personally enjoy trade paperbacks the most. There's places like Marvel Unlimited, and there used to be Comixology and digital stuff where a lot of people do reading. And then there's the piracy sites like. I shouldn't say, you know, what they are, but they're out there. You know, you can find any comic book you want, and there is massive readership on those websites. And Carl, I think you know some of the numbers, and if you're willing to talk about this stuff, but this is clearly a big thing. And I find it really interesting because like piracy in movies is a huge deal. Like no movie company would be happy if you downloaded Dune 2 tonight and watched it at home. But like you could download Ultimate Spider-Man, you know, from this free reading comic book website, and Marvel doesn't care. Like, so that's kind of the landscape. Carl, what were you kind of getting at with that whole thing?
Yeah, what I'm getting at is I'm a big data guy, and at the end of the day, I need to follow the eyeballs, right? I think as 24/7, we're thinking about comics 24/7, right? And when you look at things and they're not working, you want to problem solve and like deliver a experience that people love and enjoy. I go to the pirate sites because it's convenient. I'm about to board a plane. I could download it. And why I go to pirate sites instead of anywhere else, because some of these apps are just clunky. And the pirate site search, boom, it comes right up, download right away, and it's a fast PDF, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
you're saying that the Marvel app is not something that works well, and I agree with you, sir.
Yes, and here's a hack. So if you read it on your desktop or on your phone, there's all kinds of like not safe for work advertising that does show up. So I do not recommend that. But if you download it right before you get on the plane and you basically jump on the plane and read it on the plane, none of those ads actually pop up because they're not tracking you as you're reading. Wow. So that's my preferred way of reading. Now, eyeballs. You would think these sites would get taken down right away. Like I used to be in, actually Mickey and I both used to be in the music industry. Pirating was a big problem, but the more they fought it, the more it pushed back and more it proliferated. Right. But once Spotify figured things out, included all the labels in it, things really turn around. Now there's actually a music industry again, and people are excited about music once again. So the reason I think I say that is because with comics, they've allowed it to proliferate. And if you look at like a webtoons, for example, a lot of folks says, oh, like I'll reference Comics Pro. I think one of the attendees who I think had a channel that kind of poo-pooed on you guys at Swagglehaus, he actually went to Comics Pro and he poo-pooed on Comics Pro. And he basically said, he sat at the table and the folks at Comics Pro said, basically the whole next generation only reads anime and manga. And we're going to give up. And so in a way, it really turned them off. But if you were to look at the numbers, comics aren't dead. Webtoons does around 70 million unique views a month. The pirate site, that's the number one most prominent one, does around 25 million unique views a month. And they have day-and-day release with regular week-to-week comic book days. And that tells me that there's enough readers out there. And yeah, that's just one of them. But imagine the 4 or 5 that you actually see when you search for a free comic. I think we're competitive with Webtoons, but we're just not capturing the value. And yeah, because we're not capturing the value, the companies cannot further invest in the quality of the content. And so who suffers? That is the creators themselves, because now they're not able to get pay raises. They're not able to grow. And then we suffer because they're not able to create great works. Obviously, you have like the outliers, like the DWJs of the world, who loves what he does and works super fast. He could produce great work, right? But for the most part, it's really hard for creators to deliver great work under the current circumstances. And so, in a way, I do, as much as I do participate in kind of seeing how the pirated stuff works, I'm also studying them really closely as a business model.
So it's interesting because you said some of those sites get 25 million views
unique a month.
So I went, and you told me offline. I don't know if you want to say it online here, but like you told me the revenue that.
Yeah, I'll just say it. I mean, low quality ads, not safe for work ads. I went to an expert who's big on kind of search engine optimization / ad revenue. He estimates that to generate around 8 to 10 million a year as a site, as a pirate.
So that's pretty crazy. So it's like, so they're getting all this traffic, they're getting all these views, and then your experience in talking to a publisher at one of the big 2 at Comics Pro was they don't care. Like, what was their feeling on this?
I didn't talk to a current publisher. I talked to a publisher that was a former publisher, and he actually said the corporate mandate was just to let it be, because it actually helps with proliferating their content and generating popularity. And I think it makes sense from, I mean, I'm not even gonna poo-poo on them, because to be honest, like, let's say, let's put on our, like, Mickey and I also work in film and TV. So, like, let's put on that hat, right? As an executive, hey, I'm getting like 25 million views by just pumping this stuff out, and it promotes my movie that's about to come out, that's going to generate $1 billion. Great marketing tool, right? And so I get it. I see why they would think that way, because to them, at the R&D level, like, comic industry, a lot of the pay rates have not changed for years, and even gotten less because they're outsourcing overseas. So, why wouldn't they just see that as like a really cheap R&D / marketing cost? So I get it, but it also shows the, why I think we're struggling a little bit as an industry, because the priority has now shifted to selling movies and selling TV shows versus really trying to figure out this business of publishing in a productive way. But don't get me wrong, they still make a lot of money. I think,
Right.
It's definitely showing a consumer over a collector all day. Just like, okay, numbers, free publicity, but there's no longevity there.
Yeah. And it's just an interesting thing, because so I can understand the idea behind it. Like, yeah, let's just get it out there in a way, or let people do it. But, like, does it really translate to, them getting more people on board and reading? Like, I keep going back to what you were talking about with, like, when music went through this, and like Napster was like the thing. And I think, who was the guy who made Napster? Sean Parker, right?
Sean Parker, yeah.
Like, I think he said something that has always stuck with me. He was like, music is one of those things, because of the way that, like, radio was created, that always felt like it should be free, because it just kind of exists, like, in the ether. Like, you go to a restaurant, you just hear it. You turn on the radio, you just hear it. So paying for music felt bad, but clearly people have to get paid for their music. So it was just like the model of, like, selling a CD at that time was just really breaking down. And so it became like it's more of a lifestyle subscription type of thing. And that's really where, like, Napster and Spotify and all that stuff, and Apple Music, I guess, or iTunes Music, took off. And I just think there's got to be something similar there with comics, where people like them, they want to have the lifestyle, they want to read them in theory, but is it just too expensive and too slow to follow single issues? Is that, like, the problem? It kind of feels like, I don't know if comics need to come out more like movies, where it's like, hey, here's the 12-issue trade. Like, we've been working on this for 3 years, and then we just dropped the 12-issue trade, as opposed to the single issue. I don't know. Like, was there any discussion of that, Carl? Like, what the Spotify solution to comics would be, or have you ever unearthed any answers in that space?
I think about it a lot, and then within the team we talk about it a lot, but I didn't see much of the digital strategy discussed at Comic Pro at all. The sense is there is a really refined distribution infrastructure already set up on a global basis. One thing that's really good, though, was typically, or before the pandemic, Diamond Distribution was the monopoly for distributing comics. And now there's Lunar and there's Penguin Random House. So I saw some competition there as far as distribution goes. And because now there's multiple distributors, Comics Pro actually worked on this project called Comet, which is basically metadata for comic books. So that going forward, they're going to be able to track the sales, sell-through for comics, I think, which is super healthy. And in a way, I was kind of surprised that it never existed. So in a way, we've kind of been working like the Nielsen ratings, where they just, like, estimate, they'll, like, survey comic book shops, kind of like how they used to survey I guess TV channels, and see how many people tune in, and then they'll just do an estimate. And I think that's how comics have been managed. But I think with better data, it's going to really help the industry move forward. So I think coming out of Comics Pro, I was pretty optimistic, seeing that by the end of this year, this new metadata will be available for comics to use as the platform.
Mm. Do you think that would encourage them to stay longer with series, or would that encourage them to cancel series even faster?
Oh, here we go. Here's another topic, Comics Pro. So let me kind of paint a picture of the demographics first. So we touched on this a little bit last week, but there was 3 demographics. So last year, Comics Pro said that it was one of the worst years for comic retailers, and they acknowledged it right off the bat. And I think it's coming off the highs of the pandemic. But within the demographics, I think it really impacted who showed up this year. I think one was basically a lot of folks described as the old guard, kind of older males that ran these comic shops for years, right? They've kind of probably had like their heydays in the 90s, did really well, and that has just been comfortable. And then there was a transitional group of retailers, which is the younger, 30 to 40 something that's been working in that shop for 20 years and now is taking over on behalf of the old guard. And then there was a handful of young upstarts that are, eBay shops first, and they're now coming in to start a shop. So they're trying to learn what it's like to run a retail shop. And, what was interesting was a lot of the focus was, really about, how to create longevity with the relationship with their customers. And when I spoke to the kind of second and third category, they were a lot more data conscious. In fact, they actually used a lot of the software that was provided. I think one of them is called like Manage Comics, and the other one is Comics Hub. And basically what they told me was, and this is from just a few of the shops I spoke to, 80% of their customers are subscription based. So like they're willing to subscribe, but the problem is they end up having to sell their customers again every time the book will restart. So there is a bit of a disconnect between the publishing strategy and the current buying habits of the customers. So
right.
Where, you can't really subscribe. Yeah.
I'll put a double point on that. And then I'm curious, Sarah, what you think about this. Like, so publishers, it's very clear to them, and everyone knows the pain points in the chat about this, that rebooting with a new creative team and a new #1 issue is the easiest way for them to get a boost in sales. So, all right, we're going to go, the Black Panther storyline will go 6 issues, and then we're going to reboot it to a #1 with a new creative team, or Spider-Man, same thing, or, Doctor Strange, same thing. And that benefits the publisher. But what you just said from retailers is that the lifeblood for them is to have people with pull lists. And as soon as you reboot a series, what happens is a lot of people end their pull lists because they're like, well, I was invested in this one. And now you, the retailer, have to resell somebody on like, oh, but this new Black Panther #1 is going to be even better, so you should, start your pull list with this. So it's like these opposite interests between the publisher and the retailer of like what they want out of their customers. Retailer wants long running things where it's just kind of autopilot, where people are just invested, and then publishers just want new #1s. So that's kind of the issue, right, Carl?
Yeah, and the reason they do it that way is because they want to bump up the sales. So what happens is that #1 always bumps the sales and it just drops like a crater, and then they restart again after 6 issues, and that's their solution to producing bigger numbers.
What's your thought on that, Sarah? Like, I don't know if there's like any, you said you like Star Wars and stuff and Batman. Like, how do you feel when creative teams reboot, or it's like, oh, here's the new story now, like from square one? What's your feeling on those?
I mean, it's definitely hard to get your footing. And I think a lot of people do want their time to have something that's going to last.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult there. It also promotes people only caring when something's popular and only really like purchasing into that moment, and then being like, whatever, I know what's going to be hot next, and then I'll buy that. So I think that's why, channels like both of yours, even before I was involved, are important, because you actually keep fans going on things by by letting them know what's going to happen, what's happened before.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it is a little tough, especially when you're trying to get your collection going and then you're like, what was the point? Like,
Yeah.
I love it, but I'll never get to see it again.
Yeah. And then that kind of goes back to like my feeling of like, oh, well, I don't want to like buy this until it's in the trade because like I don't even know if it's going to make it to issue number whatever, right? So it's like I don't know how you get out of that pattern, and I feel like you said, I want to know that if I'm investing in this, like I'm gonna feel some satisfaction by the time I get to whatever issue, or that this is actually the publisher are going to be putting in effort into this so that I can invest in it and read along with it. But I think I've been so burned so many times reading new comics that eventually just get canceled and they just do a new number one that I don't really buy new stuff until I know, oh, okay, it's like a finished thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. What's the feeling with retailers when they express that to you, Carl? Is it just like, yeah, it just is what it is. And there's no out of it.
Well, I mean, there's that. I think managed comics as a software are now allowing retailers to basically bridge. So let's say like, Super Spider-Man 1 through 6, right, comes out, then I don't know if it's something that's activated on the reader side or on their side, but now it could bridge to the Uncanny Spider-Man when number one comes out again. So like it kind of continues the subscription.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's something that people love that. I thought my conversation with retailers was very fruitful because I feel like I was asking them a lot of questions that I don't think other publishers ask. And maybe I'm just super naive because I'm just there learning as a sponge. So maybe that's probably why. But I do feel like there could be more opportunity to collaborate with the retailers to figure out what the customers really want, right?
Mm.
But I also understand, I have empathy for the studios, where it's really hard to do that when your bottom line is driven by the movie ticket sales and not by the comics themselves. So I think it's really hard to kind of marry the two worlds because, as you know, Mickey, on the filmmaker space, like you as a filmmaker, the last thing you want is a survey on how to tell your story, right? It's like, and me as a producer, I'm hiring you because I trust your creative vision, and you are God on set. You're not trying to take a survey from the community.
Look what happened with my sweater. It was totally not.
Yeah.
You manifested my look today.
Yeah, so that's why it's really hard from a studio perspective. So I think there's just some tension there that's gonna be really tough. Marvel had a great run. Don't you guys agree? I mean, like Kevin Feige, true comic nerd, has serious fan service into all the titles until, obviously when Disney Plus came out, you saw this mandate to like pump out Marvel content, and like the stuff just went everywhere, right? I mean, me as a super Marvel fan, try to catch and read watch everything, and I would even buy all the comics, which I think has kind of now become like a merch category instead of, where it's like, hey, we have Echo coming out, let's make sure we pump out Echo books, right?
Yeah.
And so, I've totally lost track of that personally as a fan because there is true ADD as well. Again, when you say ADD, I do try to follow books when I love them.
Yeah.
But like, I think the longest what I was able to follow was like Time Before Time was the most recent one, where Joe Palmer, Declan Chevy, they had this like time travel book. I loved it, but I was able to only follow up to like issues 7 or 8, and I just forgot about it 1 month. And once I forgot about it 1 to 2 months, I just stopped reading. And then I waited till they finished at 29. Then I went and I read the whole thing. And I think that's
what happens too. You miss a little bit of something, and you're like, I might as well wait until it's all finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then by that time, you really kind of have way too much to catch up on.
Yeah.
You wait for it to be a classic, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah. That's true. Like, I mean, like how many people out there have like, oh yeah, like it's in there on my read list, but it's just we all know what it is, guys. You're never going to get to it.
Yeah.
It's just
if
the pile
someone's
gets higher
the
and
list
higher.
for you, great.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's definitely a lot of issues. Did you, last thing on the Comics Pro, kind of your experience there, you made mention to me a little bit about how like the big two, Marvel, DC, they're a little bit like paint by numbers, a little going through the motion, like, all right, guys, here's our slate for, 2024 and and blah, blah, blah. And as far as like fresh ideas or what they're trying to do differently, maybe not as much energy there, but like, do you at least get the sense from, I guess, the booms and the images and stuff that they're thinking about it, or is it really like just the upstart, newest publishers that have kind of like new life and enthusiasm?
Boom's presentation was immaculate. Philippe, he is such a great presenter, and I feel like he comes off like he takes it very seriously. So because he takes comics very seriously, I think everyone takes him very seriously. And Boom had a great presentation of being the modern franchise. So obviously, like everyone knows, like Something is Killing Children is going to be on Netflix.
Right.
A huge Berserker with Keanu Reeves. So they really present with class and with vision, right? Marvel, DC, what's interesting now that kind of, if I double clicked into what I shared with you, they were both in a weird and also refreshing way, kind of apologetic. I think Marvel was apologetic in the context that the Deadpool and Wolverine title did not match kind of like their publishing strategy. I think the publishing was like a whole different set of titles. You guys might know that better, Mickey, but I wasn't really tracking. They kind of addressed that. And on DC, they actually addressed FOCs, where I guess they had their FOCs front running, releasing DC titles on Tuesdays. And so you had to do FOCs on Sundays. And people had to like go to work on Sundays to order the DC titles, and they basically changed it back to the cadence of Mondays and Wednesdays, Wednesday release, and everyone cheered in the room when DC addressed that. And so it's also not secret that when I talk to some of these retailers, that they say 80% of their books are sold are Spider-Man and Batman books. So it also
just buying them just to buy them at this point.
Yeah, people are buying them. They're merged. They're tracking. I don't know how people are reading it. Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Sarah?
I have this. I bought it. I haven't even opened it yet. Like, it's cool.
Is that Hush?
Hush, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's old too, but I was like, oh, I don't have that one yet. I'll buy it.
Yeah.
But nothing. And like, God, please, Batman, don't hold this against me. But like, no, I just bought it to buy it, and that's what it is. There's nothing that's been like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Merch.
I'm just a loyal kind of girl, that's it.
Does your OCD, like my OCD, go crazy? Like when you go into a store and there's like, oh, there's Batman Hush, and there's Batman this, and there's Batman that, and there's Batman and Robin, and then there's Batman and Catwoman, and then there, it's like, why is there not just like one Batman?
It's crazy because it doesn't matter what I went in to buy, I will still buy something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's getting I have no space.
So
I'm not even like as bad as Carl, but I'm just like, my house, like I can't.
So you're the example then, like in terms of it just being like Batman, Spider-Man, they just sell more, they're more popular.
Yes, I know. I represent the basics right now. I do. It happens.
Yeah. Right.
And we get that, but we can also be extra in other ways.
Right. Well, shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Got 104 people, which I think might be a good moment to take a little pause and maybe do a giveaway. Carl, do we have a giveaway?
We should do a giveaway. So, one of the things that we shared on our stream at 24/7 Comics last week was, I'm actually starting to give away my collection of stuff. Of too much stuff.
Oh wow!
So I'm literally randomly pulling graded books. I'm pulling random stuff, and I want to do some giveaways. And so the one that I pulled up last week that we said we're going to give away was this a Bloodshot number 7, which is basically the first appearance of Colin King in the ninja costume.
There it is.
Yeah, so there it is.
Valiant hype, guys. Valiant
hype. And so I know it's not like it's been a while since the movie, but this is the one that we pulled out. So I want to give it away. We'll ship it out. But it's funny because a lot of my collecting and my hoarding has gone to original comic art. So a lot of my books, I'm really starting to move on from, and I thought what better place to give them away than these streams.
Yeah.
So here we go, Mickey.
Just so you guys know, I apologize to everyone out there that's not into original art and likes to watch the channel because I talk comic books, but it's going to be Carl's fault. I am or fart. You know, I'm soon going to liquidate everything because he's got me so like immersed in OA right now. So
I'm liquidated.
Yeah. What came in today? I literally just got a piece today.
Carl, you have a way with us.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about because I've been looking for a sample from Bruce Timm for a long time, and I finally got it. So this came in today.
Excuse me.
I'm so happy about
it.
Wow. It's been hard finding a good sample, because every time he does these drops, they just sell out through Albert Moy. Yeah. And I somehow got this at the comic link auction, so I'm freaking super excited.
Epic.
Yeah.
All right, well let's figure out this giveaway thing. We need to come up with a hashtag for everyone to enter. What's a good hashtag? You know, I don't know, Sarah, Carl. What should we have the people write to enter to be in the giveaway?
I think
read comics, Batman. It's a Valiant book. What's a Bloodshot thing? Vin Diesel?
24 swag.
Carl Fart.
Carl Fart.
We're 24 right. Swag.
Carl Fart. It's Carl's fart.
It's that good.
24/7. There you go.
Let's do 24/7.
Bloodshot. I like the who said this? Valiant.
We're gonna do 24/7.
We're not doing the
giveaway. 24/7
giveaway, guys. Yeah.
This is why you're in charge.
Is that too general? Would that
we need you.
Should we do 24/7 comics giveaway or
Sure. Wait, so 24/7 comics giveaway. This is what we're doing, guys. Final decision. But hashtag 24/7 comics giveaway. 24/7 comics giveaway.
All right.
Everyone get in there. Get in there.
And I'm not eligible, so you guys better get in there now.
Get in there. I see a couple people wrote 24/7 giveaway. It's comics giveaway. Everyone get in there. Good. Good to see everyone typing in.
I've actually never used this tool before, so it's super cool to see.
Cool.
Yeah, this is the StreamYard giveaway feature. You go to like streamyard.com/giveaway. And then if you're logged in, I can just choose the stream that's going on right now. And then you type in the hashtag. And then when I hit this button, it's going to do a fun little pick for us. So a quick thing, everyone put in 24/7 comics giveaway. We're going to pick a winner. Carl's going to be giving away the Bloodshot comic book. I need you guys to go into the description, go give 24/7 a stream. We're dual streaming right now. You got Sarah and Carl, they do a little show over at the 24/7 YouTube channel, so go give them a sub. And then Carl, maybe they'll give you how are they going to get in contact with you? Give you a follow on Instagram?
Yeah, just ping me on Instagram if you win, or just email community@247comics.com.
Okay, we're gonna drop your guys' Instagrams in there. We're gonna give a few more, and then someone's gonna win the book.
Exciting.
I'm excited. Yeah. Oh, no splash in the 24/7. It's just 247.
Yeah. All right, slowing down here.
Slowing down.
Give it a few more seconds. It's final order cutoff, guys. Final order cutoff coming up.
Yo, speaking of Transformers, we got EJ Sue in the building.
Hey.
Holler EJ Sue.
Yeah, longtime Transformers artist when it was at IDW. And then yeah, we got some
Shout-
fans. West
shout out
Coast
to-
Avengers too. He was
Yes, uncensored nerds, get in here.
Shout out to Uncensored Nerds. He has a great podcast that I was on recently.
Ooh, love. Okay.
You should have Carl and Sarah on your podcast. I think they'd be great.
Let's do it. Uncensored
Love
Nerds. Let's look at that.
All right, here we go.
All
All right, I think that's the cutoff. We're doing it. We're going to start collecting the comments, hitting the button. Okay, we got 40 entries.
Nice.
You got a 1 in 40 chance to win here. All right, you guys ready? Should we do it? Okay. And
Let's go.
draw.
Ooh, I love this.
This is cool.
Who's it gonna be?
Really put more stuff. Oh wow.
Jeffrey
Matuza.
Woo, congrats, Jeffrey.
Down.
All right, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Matuza, congratulations to you, sir. You are going to win the comic book.
Yep,
And
I'm
so all you got to
on.
do is go over here, go give Carl a follow on Instagram. You guys can also give Carl a follow on Instagram. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Go give 24/7 Comics a follow on Instagram.
Jeffrey's name is on it now.
Oh, I love it. I was gonna put a post-it note too before you send
Oh,
it.
perfect.
Get ready for my really sweet messages as well. That's so cool.
yeah,
Our first winner.
Yeah, get in contact with Carl. You guys can figure out all the details, and yeah, congratulations, Jeff, on the book. You know,
And while we're at it, let's do a quick thank you for
Swagglehaus.
Swagglehaus.
Yes.
He's here training us on this whole streaming game because Sarah and I, we met last year at San Diego Comic-Con. We've been wanting to do this, and we finally said, let's just screw it, let's start doing it. And so we're kind of on training wheels right now. So we're paying attention and taking notes, and even just talking into the camera is like a whole thing. I'm like watching Mickey like a hawk, and just to follow and learn.
as long as I'm 1 grade ahead, I can teach you that. So while you may be in 1st grade, my 2nd grade level is enough to show you guys.
Oh, you're way ahead. I mean, we're
no expert, but
let me ask you
You're
about
the emperor because I'm the Padawan, so you're the emperor.
you're the emperor. I'll be Obi-Wan Kenobi
Of the swag.
So, Mickey, let me ask you. So we talked earlier about release schedules, right? And we talked about how you obviously wait, but both you and I are very active on Kickstarter right now, amongst a bunch of our friends who are also releasing their own books.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like this Kickstarter, this whole Kickstarter meta works because it operates kind of like a movie? It's almost like there's this movie trailer, there's this excitement, then you get to participate, then the movie arrives in your home when it's ready. Is that why you think it works, or do you think there's other reasons as to why it works better?
I think there's probably a few things, but I think the ones that you're getting at seem to be, at least from my impression, the main things. Like, it feels more premiere when you have like a Kickstarter that's like, yeah, here's the whole series that's coming out. Like, here's the trailer, here's the hype, like here's the characters, here's the art, here's the pages. Like, comics, it's so hard to get not only a teaser preview trailer for it. I mean, they don't even do them. I mean, they do them sometimes, but barely. But like, where do people get their previews for stuff? Like, you have to go into like really hardcore like websites to get preview pages, or maybe you're on a website like a Bleeding Cool that has some preview pages, but it's not very interesting. So like, there's just really there's no hype going into new comic books outside of maybe within your social spheres. Like, there's a FOMO comic book that people are talking about, and then it's like, okay, FOMO begets FOMO, but like, it's so hard to get excited about, I don't know, what's going on with Moon Knight right now. I mean, no one knows, like, it's unless you're actually taking a flyer and buying it. So I think that the Kickstarter is just a really great way to have a marketing event, make it feel like, oh, this is important. This is a moment in time that people are gravitating to. and then it can foster a little bit of a community, which is like always missing, right? Because it's like, we talk about this a lot with the community aspect. With movies or other stuff like video games and stuff, there's always a place for people to kind of talk about, like, hey, I saw Dune, or I played whatever, the latest video game. And there's always people to communicate with that, but there's not as much with the comic book thing. And I feel like when you have a Kickstarter that fosters a community and you got backers and people are in it, you guys are kind of all in the same shared space. I think all those elements play a role to it. And I feel like that's probably a smart thing for, well, companies are doing it. I mean, the Dynamites are doing it. The Boom Studios are doing it. Images is doing it. I don't know if Marvel and DC wouldn't be able to for whatever reason, but it feels like if they want to like invest heavily into a title, or like when they did, who is it that did the Batman recently? And
Silvestri?
It was, yes. Silvestri, like he did Batman, and it was a big deal, and everyone swears by that Batman. I'm sure people in the chat are like, "Oh, dude, it was like the greatest thing ever." But like, it kind of like was a drop in the bucket as far as like the noise that it made. It feels like that would have been a good like, hey, we're doing this massive Kickstarter release for the Silvestri.
1000%. I was gonna say that. Like, why wouldn't DC and Marvel do it? There must be some reasons. Yeah,
they really haven't. They're just like so comfortable.
Yeah. Silvestri took 10 years to make that book, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, and that deserves
service to us. Actually,
yeah, it is. Like it's a shame for him. It's a disservice to the people who are fans of Batman and stuff. Like, there's no hype. Like, how is anyone going to find out about it? Like, I think marketing is one of the biggest problems for comic books, on top of the many others, but marketing is definitely one of the biggest. And it feels like crowdfund is a great way to build marketing.
What's interesting is, as much as we talk about the system, I also have a lot of empathy for publishers, where I do feel like when I talk to the publishers and the departments out there, they're strapped for resources. I mean, because at a corporate level, when you're not generating a certain amount of revenue, you're also then not allocated additional marketing budgets or resources to grow. And so I do feel like they're doing the best they can with the infrastructure they're given, but it's really hard to pivot like Boom, where they go in and they do these crazy Kickstarter campaigns, and it really gives it like a serious lift into the traditional publishing space. And I think that's the combination that needs to happen. Another publisher I think a lot about is Dinesh at Bad Idea.
Yeah,
I think he was able to breathe life into Valiant again, and when he left, I think he took a few years to really think about what publishing looks and feel like. And this year, even though last year when we first started 24/7, Dinesh was like, "Hey, you should go to Comics Pro." This year he didn't go because I think a lot of their strategy has shifted now onto Kickstarter, which I think is really smart, because we're seeing like blockbuster numbers in the campaigns that they're doing. So I think there's something there. I think there's something really transformative with the current new set of publishers that are coming out.
Yeah. Well, we have a few more minutes left in the show, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time, finishing out with some books reading. I think we don't do enough that we're, the stuff that we're, like, or we're talking about, or maybe some recommendations, giving us the people. I know, Sarah, you mentioned the Star Wars one that you had earlier in the show, but what are some of your tops? Got any like things that you've read, new or old, that you recommend to anyone out there? What's some stuff? Give me some reading list, ideas.
Okay.
I need new stuff.
I have to give all the credit to Carl for this.
What's this one here?
King of Spies.
Ooh, Mark Millar, sold. Or Mark Miller, excuse me.
I mean, just wow. It just changed my whole, where I was like, okay, another 007. Okay, we get it. This is like the real nitty gritty. Just like watching Batman when he's older, and you're like, this makes sense. This is what happens to you when you behave that way for so long, and you kind of start to let the misery of that set in. I don't know. I'm kind of like in a moment now where I'm reading Undiscovered, lots of like our Evermind stuff, and kind of going back and looking at different versions of things that I've loved all along.
Right.
So I actually just shared this with my entire new group of coworkers.
Nice.
And no one that I've shown this to, and they didn't even get to take it home. No one that I've shown this to ever knew that anything like this even existed.
Right.
And it wasn't the first thing you gave me, Carl, but it was the thing that I'm sharing the most.
Do you have any particular writers or artists that you like especially? Like, do you find yourself like going back to anyone in particular, or no?
I mean, Sean, really, who did Evermind, was the first person that I ever strategically knew, and that was being from a cosplay world. I had comics, but they were like things that looked pretty or characters that I really knew. That was the first time that I had the experience of being brought into a moment. It wasn't a super long line to meet the artist. It was something approachable and something that made sense, and different things that he'd worked on, like you wouldn't necessarily know was the same artist.
Right.
But you were invited back. So I'm definitely like from an outside perspective that I can see trends and styles, and I'm new to being completely hooked on things.
Right. Right. What about you, Carl? What you got? Any recommends at this moment in time? Anything that that's you've been reading, either new or old?
Sure. Besides King of Spies, which was one of my all-time favorites, and one of the first Netflix comics, actually. Dark Knight of Steel. Have you guys heard of that? It's basically a story about encapsulate the whole DC universe in like a medieval setting. So Batman
on my list right now.
Superman's a prince, and KL was picked up by like a king and queen. So that's amazing. Dan Mora was artist on that, and he kills it. It's funny you mentioned too. I actually follow a ton of artists. A lot of times when I love the art, I follow in on the stories, and so it's funny actually. Sarah, I have the trade here ready to give you next time I see you. Yeah, so there's that.
Steer, you told me that because I was gonna buy it right now.
Yeah, okay, that's cool support.
Like, stop it.
Another, speaking of kind of fantasy, a guy I really love is this guy Philip Kennedy Johnson. This guy is a beast. He's a full-time military. He's a soldier. He works in the military. And he, I think he's in the band, so he tours all over the world. So he's full time doing that, and then he's a full time. So he has double full time, and he's a full time comic writer. And he wrote one of my favorite fantasy series called The Lost God, and that was like a hit for DC Dark. And now he's writing the latest Hulk series, and Hulk alongside Nick Klein's art, so good. It's the darkest. I mean, Hulk's been going through all kinds of weird stuff in the last few like renditions, and man, like he's killing it right now. It's like think of it like Hulk in like a horror setting. It's like a really dark story. There's like all this undead cultish stuff, and all his religious stuff that he brought into it all, and it's awesome. And Philip, he writes a bunch of books, and like I met him, had like a long talk with him at Baltimore Comic Con. This guy's like a soldier for comics, and he loves comics. And why he even got into writing was his brother was an artist, and he wanted to support his brother, so he started writing for him. And so not only is he a great writer, I think I just love the energy and discipline he's bringing to the craft. So there's that. So that's 2 books. What else I'm reading? Yeah, Archer and Armstrong. Man, I don't know why I've been like in this deep like Barry Windsor Smith deep dive. So reading all his old stuff, and man, this guy's a master storyteller, man. I think there's a reason why when I think vintage, I mean, one thing Mickey knows, and a lot of my comic art friends know as well, is I've always been like a big collector of like modern art, but recently I've dove into vintage art because just the cost of modern art has gotten so expensive. It's got me to a point where like, oh wait, like I used to think I can't really afford the vintage stuff. Now I can't afford the modern stuff, so might as well go vintage because it's actually cheaper, right? And I'm buying nostalgia, and so I've been doing that, but it's gotten me back to thinking about Barry Windsor, and I realized I do follow a lot of the artists. Oh, Simone DeMille too. Simone DeMille, he's the artist for Batman and Robin, and it's actually pretty good. And speaking of Hush, he introduces the female version, Shush, which is kind of gimmicky, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that I've been reading that. It's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good. It's obviously targeting a younger audience, but those 3 books I could recommend.
Oh, those are good ones. I'll definitely watch the rewind and write all that stuff down because I always need good stuff. I guess I'll finish out mine. I mean, I feel bad because mine's a little bit of a cheat as far as like, well, what am I actually reading? I mean, I already said that I'm reading The Last Ronin, and I pulled out a couple of knowing that I was going to talk about this, but my favorite writer is Ed Brubaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has a couple series. One is called Out in the Cold.
Nice.
It's kind of like a
Look at that.
Jason Bourne style movie, like a sleeper agent thing. And then this other one that he has is Fade Out, which is noir detective stuff. And, you know, you guys know on the channel, I'm writing my Lovecraftian comic book and it's noir. And so a lot of times I read stuff to keep my brain like in the world as I work on stuff. So it's like that's kind of what I'm working on, or that's kind of why I'm revisiting some of these books and rereading. But everything Ed Brubaker writes to me is he's just a master. I love everything that he does. If you want a superhero thing, he wrote Captain America, like the Winter Soldier stuff, like all the stuff that the movies, like the Winter Soldier and Civil War, not Civil War as much, but the Winter Soldier, that whole storyline, that was really taken from his Captain America stuff. So he's fantastic. He kind of created that whole Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier character. So he's amazing. And then my other recommend would be there's a series that was very, very popular at the time. I'm sure everybody already talked about it, but I finally read it or finished reading it a few months back, but it was 8 Billion Genies by Charles Soule. And honestly, it's like the best thing I've read in the last, like, I don't know, 15 years, maybe. Like, I think it's so clear to me that this is, I think Netflix already optioned it and all that stuff. It's so clear to me that if they do it well, this will be like one of the biggest, most talked about shows. I mean, it's already, it's like a $1 million elevator pitch idea, but even more than that, the execution is so good. Like he just
tell Sarah the pitch.
So spit it to me.
It's called 8 Billion Genies, and it picks up with 3 best friends in like kind of like a small town, and all of a sudden, instantaneously across the world, every single person on the planet gets a genie, and they are offered one wish. And the entire, as you would expect, the entire world kind of goes crazy, and all this sort of happens. And there's no time in which you have to use your wish. Some people use it right away. Some people choose to hold on to theirs, and it kind of spans like sort of like what happens all across the world and Earth, and it sort of is anchored with these best friends who kind of go through it. You know, sort of the dystopian utopia that comes of it. And it's just a really, really fantastic look at, you know, humanity and you know, our desires and like how the world would go and all the social implications of it. And it's just a great story. So highly recommend that one. So that was my big recommend for everyone out there who is in the chat, you know, that wants to check it out.
It's a great one because just the way they structure not just the story itself, but the time.
Yeah.
Time.
It's
so
so
like,
good. Yeah.
It starts with a day separation, then like a week, then a month,
then a year, then like
year. Yeah. So, and there's so much psychology to it because they must have researched psychology of people, of how they behave and what they would do. Because like each of how we think about things and the phases, it's applied to that time that passes. So it's really well done. I really like that series.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's the show, guys. I think we did. You know,
thank you so much, gentlemen. Wow, another amazing night.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time getting into a lot of different topics, within publishing. Thanks, Carl, for your Comics Pro download, and thanks so much, Sarah, for joining us and letting us know your thoughts on current state of comic book reading. But I guess for the people on my side, in case they don't know you, maybe I can let you guys take the floor really quick. Say a little bit about yourselves, where people can find you if they're interested. Carl, let me start with you.
Sure. Yeah. Follow us on 247comics.com. You could sign up for a newsletter or just subscribe. Go to our channel. We're really picking up steam on the YouTube, so we want to really build a base. Like I said, I'm giving away my collection, so we're going to give away something literally every week. So I don't know if we're going to stream next week because I'll be traveling, but we'll be streaming as often as we can. So Sarah and I have a lot of ideas we want to share, and we're going to continue working with special guests like Mickey here as we learn.
Awesome. And Sarah, where can people find you?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am just the loyal sidekick here, but I am at the Nerdy Barbie on Instagram, 247 Comics as well. Just kind of here enjoying and learning with you all. Thank you so much, Mickey. It's been absolutely amazing. I've been watching your show for quite some time now and can't wait to continue doing so. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for hopping on. And thank you guys, everyone in the chat, for hanging out. Thank you all for watching. Have a good night, and we'll see you in the next stream.
Night.
Later, guys.